Hi, and welcome to this latest immigration law conversation video. Today, I'm joined by Mai Kelly, who's a consultant psychologist and the founder and director of Panta-Rei Psychology at work. And today, we're going to discuss psychological assessments in immigration cases, how to get the best out of your expert witness, and also look at how we as immigration lawyers can protect our own psychological well-being, which is so important in the work we do. So, Mai, thank you so much for joining me today. A real privilege. Just tell us a bit about you, what you do.
Thank you, Adam, for having me. It's such a pleasure. I've been looking forward to it. I'm really excited to be here. What do I do? I always find it difficult to answer that question, but because I've done many things before I decided to focus on my work as an expert witness. I'm a consultant psychologist, a business coach, and I work as an expert witness in various settings, particularly in immigration, which I find fascinating. As you said, the company is called Panta-Rei, which means everything flows. And this is exactly our job. Our job in Panta-Rei, my job, is to get people unstuck. So helping people identify where they get stuck. Where is the difficulty, psychological, business-wise, from an immigration perspective, okay? And we help them understand the tools, understand the difficulties, learn the tools, and move away from that stuckness. So this is what we do. We have a team of psychologists, and we're recruiting more in case there's somebody out there that is interested in this field. And our work is growing. We're learning a lot. So this is more or less what we do.
That's
We've done a lot more.
that's really helpful. And if there are any psychologists watching, do get in touch with Panta-Rei. Certainly,
Please do.
you've talked about immigration cases, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of solicitors and advisors who'll be watching our conversation. How can you help in terms of getting involved in immigration cases, in terms of both writing reports and therapeutic intervention?
Yes. Important question. And it's particularly important because often I get a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of lack of information, etc. So here is how we can help. I, as part of doing a lot, I've specialized in trauma. I worked with survivors of torture, myself directly through the NHS and later on in Panta-Rei. And the using that and listing that knowledge and that ability to identify the client's difficulties, the client's stories, the background information, identifying all of this and helping them tell their story from a particular perspective. So it's not just a psychological expert witness report. It's actually the ability to string together a sequence of the person's life to explain to anybody who is in a position to judge those cases, whether it is a tribunal or other bodies, to help them see the background, to understand what pushes someone to make a decision to move to another country or forcefully finding themselves in a different country. So we are very detail orientated.
Mhm.
And because of that, our reports are slightly longer. We're now adjusting it to the first tier tribunal guidelines, which is very difficult because I would like the freedom to be able to tell their story fully without omitting anything. We would always be very honest. We would always I say that I will not write anything that I cannot testify to and protect in court if asked to. So in terms of immigration cases, the main thing we can help with is delivering the story, having very clear, highly professional diagnosis,
Yeah.
An explanation of the consequences of of the treatment first, and then the treatment necessary, the attention that is needed, the next steps that are required, and eventually how would that impact the person if they did not get this treatment, if they did not get what they need. And unfortunately, we had many cases where those people were not listened to. So we help convey that message. I think that's the most important thing, in a clear, professional, and storytelling way, and that is completely factual.
That's so important, I think, for any of us who've dealt with traumatized individuals,
Yes. Yeah.
enabling them to get out their story when
Yes.
so often that the Home Office and perhaps immigration judges are quick to find a story not credible, not believable. So having that input and helping tease out somebody's story so important, and also when witness statements are so important, that having that intervention by you will help somebody be able to also write a witness statement where they can present their account.
Absolutely. Yeah. Often traumatized clients don't have the ability to verbalize the trauma.
Mm.
We know that from many cases of victims of torture or victims of modern slavery, etc., that have been struggling to tell their stories. I can give you a clear example about Albanian men, for example. Okay. They are notoriously difficult to get information from that
Mhm.
is emotional or psychological. They're okay. They struggle, but they're okay.
Absolutely.
So I have to work with them a little bit in order to not draw the story out of them, but give them a safe environment and the tools to express themselves, and not to have to behave in a culturally appropriate manner and protect themselves.
No, that certainly resonates with my experience with clients from that demographic.
Yes.
Mike, before we go on, you referenced the practice direction of the tribunal for practitioners watching. Hopefully, you're aware. If you're not aware, I've done some training videos on this, that the practice direction came out in November.
Yes.
Section 9 deals with experts. So if you're instructing an expert like my, or another type of expert like a country expert, make
Mhm.
sure you set out the requirements. There is now this 20-page limit. Judge Plimmer, in a letter to various organizations like ILPA and the Helen Bamba Foundation, confirmed in December of last year that the page limit doesn't include things like the CV, appendices, and references.
References.
And if you set out the disputed issues within a letter of instruction, the expert doesn't then need to repeat that in her report, again, taking up those valuable pages. So do have a look at that. And if you do have an expert report that is needs to be slightly longer, you can make an application with reasons to the tribunal. Just don't do that in every case, because the
Oh,
tribunal will get fed up of that. In terms of common types of cases, you've given us one example. What are the sort of common types of cases you get instructed? Because a lot of people straight away think asylum cases, but I'm sure it's much wider than that.
absolutely. It's Article 8, it's asylum, it's modern slavery, it's forced labor, family life. I've had quite a few cases of modern slavery that ended up in a criminal charge, and people spend time in prison, and that serves as an obstacle to their ability to be here, or to the visa or cases. So we worked with that as well. There was a few cases of false imprisonment. We also do other cases. I know that we're focusing on immigration, and that's my main focus, but we do personal injury, medical negligence, and many others, family court. Often in immigration, we do family reports, which of course are part of,
Yeah.
yeah. But the family report, for example, I'm just going to connect it to the previous question, previous answer about first tier tribunal, is that I have written to the tribunal saying I am sorry for writing 2 or 3 pages longer, but we are talking about a whole family in one report. So please bear with me. I've tried to make it as succinct and as accurate as possible. So one of those cases are family cases or couples, to see the interchanging or the mutual interaction or interactive influence of removing someone or deporting someone. So we deal with those cases as well. We're looking into helping also from a psychological perspective, but I'll add that when you deem it possible within our interview, because we want to be able to help a lot more. Okay. At the moment, we're dealing almost with every aspect of immigration.
That's really helpful. And just for practitioners watching, if you are doing a report, say you instruct Mai to report on a whole family, so you've got mum and dad and the children, and it does slip over those 20 pages, make the application on the basis you're effectively dealing with 4 assessments. And you would have thought
Yes.
in that situation, the
Yeah.
tribunal would be accommodating. Let me just ask you about that, because earlier on I talked about psychological therapy. Sometimes when we think of experts, we think of one and done. They have that assessment with you, you do your report, and that's the end of your involvement. Are you involved, say, with a traumatized victim or somebody who needs sort of a period of therapy and then to write a report for the tribunal after, so, 10 sessions or something? Is that something you do?
That's a super important question, and it's coming up more and more now. A lot of the cases are being returned with comments from tribunals or from cases that specify that the expert witness is not, and I quote, is not the therapist, an NHS therapist or a therapist that sees the client on a regular basis. Following that, and following many heartbreaking cases and our desire to help, we are looking into creating an environment, whether it will be group therapy or online support for people with various immigration related difficulties, especially forced labor and modern slavery and trafficking, etc. We will divide it into different groups in order to allow them easier access into those, because many times they struggle getting to a GP, they
Yeah.
struggle getting to a psychologist. Most of them, of course, simply cannot afford a private therapy. So the what we already do is we do offer support, and it makes us a little bit overwhelmed, but we have trainees that help us. We have a panel of psychologists that I can turn to and say, look, I know they're not paying clients as such, so can you do a follow-up with this person? Or I will do it myself. 99% of the time, I do a follow-up, even if it's in a form of a simple message to ask how they're doing, if they need any support, are they at risk, etc.
And that neatly brings us actually to my next question in terms of, if you're going to prepare a report for, say, an immigration or asylum case, as well as seeing the client, what information does an instructing solicitor need to provide you? Let me just flag up one thing, because you've already hit
Yes, please.
read, is the importance of giving experts medical records.
Yes.
Because an expert isn't their GP, but
Yeah.
if you've got the medical records and that your findings are consistent with those medical records, the tribunal's going to give far more weight to that report. And for those people preparing bundles for the tribunal, if Mai does you a report, also put the medical records in. There's a reported case from a couple of years ago. I've talked about it before, but it's called HA, Expert Evidence Mental Health, and it's a Sri Lankan case. It's
Mm-hmm.
2022 UKUT 111. If anybody can't find it, reach out to me and I'll make sure I get you that. But it stresses the importance of providing experts with medical records, and the Home Office and the Tribunal are very alive to that. So if I'm instructing you, I want to give you the medical records. What else do you need to know, and else do you need to see to get get an effective report.
Yes, and thank you for making that comment about the medical records, because that is part of the new instructions of first year, as far as I am aware, and we've been asking solicitors and lawyers to help us with that. What that brings up is that most of those people, a lot of those people of the clients do not have a GP, or they haven't been to a GP because of fear of being reported, etc. So that then makes them or motivates them to go and speak to a GP and share some of their difficulties with them, which then validates. So egg in the chicken, which then validates even more the way they feel and what we state. The other things we need are detailed instructions letter. So what are the instruction questions? Try not to guide the expert into, please let us know if this person suffers from PTSD. In fact, it would be much more helpful if you say, does this person have any mental health condition? And trust the expert to share their best knowledge and their best diagnostic skills. So detailed instruction letter would be things like how would it affect him or her if they are deported? How would that affect the family if they are deported? How would questions like how have the modern slavery came about? So a lot of them, that there's a modern slavery cycle, for example, that starts in childhood. So asking very, very detailed questions would help. And what kind of a case is it?
Yeah.
Is it a tier one, a first tier? Is it a fresh application? Is it an appeal? Is it anything? And what are the background circumstances, even if it's in bullet points? Okay. What is the deadline? A deadline that will allow revisions and changing or adjusting data in case I haven't captured it in the right way or accurately. Okay. Are there any family or dependents? Okay. And what are the risks that are possible risks for the client? Potential risks, there might not be any, but potential risks to the clients for themselves or from others. Do they have any family or dependents? And any personal statements. And of course, I know a lot of the experts don't like to dive into the immigration and legal documents, but I find that I almost cannot do my job without understanding them fully, and I read them very thoroughly.
No, that's, I think you hit on an important point there. Instructing solicitors or legal advisors need to provide the expert with the statements. If it's in the context, say, of an appeal, with the refusal letter, with, say, the interview, because without those documents, it's going to diminish the weight to be given to the report.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that you mentioned, fresh claims there, which was really helpful. When there's been a previous determination, which will be negative to your client, don't hide it away from the expert, because if an expert says one thing, but in complete ignorance of what the previous judges found, again, it diminishes the weight that's going to be given to the expert. So if the expert has those previous determinations, that's really helpful. Two other things you brought up, which I think were really important, to set out what the case is about. The new practice direction has a real focus on what are the disputed issues.
Yes.
Now, don't just send a letter to Mai saying the disputed issue is whether my client's a refugee. That doesn't really help, but it with specificity as to what is the issue at stake in the appeal, for example. And the other thing was the deadline. I think, if you need an extension, apply to the tribunal, because it's great to be able to have time for Mai to provide a draft, and then if things are not covered, to be able to go back. And let me bring my role here as a barrister. if I'm drafting the skeleton argument and I've got the expert report there, I can draw on that expert report in my skeleton argument, which hopefully then will lead to, say, a decision being withdrawn by the Home Office on review.
Yes.
I think we've covered quite a lot of my next question, but let me hand back to you in terms of how do people get the most out of you? We've already hinted at a lot of it, Mike, but is there anything, you know, anything else you'd like to say in getting the most out of your expert to provide the best possible report?
Yes, I think it's a work in progress, but we're making things clearer and clearer to immigration lawyers of what is it that we need from them. So we need direct communication, accurate communication. We need clarity. And one of the most important things is to prepare the client, not prepare as to what to testify and what to say ever, but to explain to the client, what is a psychological assessment? Why are we doing this? What many times I find that I sit with a client and they say, are you from the Home Office?
Yeah.
Are you interviewing me? And how much do you cost? And how do I, so preparing the client and informing them about my services and how I can help, and reassuring them as well. Making sure the client knows I will always only write the truth.
Mm.
That is vital, because if there is no clarity about all those matters, it will lead to misunderstanding, misconceptions, and it will impact the report, delay the process of providing the report. I can write a report within a few days, very, very thoroughly and very accurately, if all of those things are in place. And of course, as we said earlier, if we have all the communication, all the documents, all the facts that we've mentioned earlier, then the process is going to be quite smooth. The other thing that we have learned to communicate with lawyers is, please do not deliver that report, submit that report without confirming in writing to the expert witness that it is accurate, that it is satisfactory, because otherwise there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of problems that comes up later on if I've misunderstood something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so essential to go through that report with the
Yeah,
client
yeah,
before submitting it, to make sure, because sometimes things are not read properly, and it's only when a point is picked up in cross-examination in court,
yes,
and a witness might say, "Well, I never said that," or "That's not right," and then the damage is done.
yeah.
I think just one thing. In terms of timescales, you mentioned a few days. Now, I don't want to encourage solicitors to come and ring you up after this and
No,
say,
no, 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 no,
"Right,
no,
can I
no.
have one by Monday, please?"
I
In an ideal world, what's your ideal timescale for turning around a report from initial
um
instruction to report?
yeah, so we say at least 14 working days. And the reason for that is because of the that those little bumps in
Yeah.
communication. Yeah. And I said I'm able to churn this, but we're getting busier and busier,
Mm.
and I have to supervise my psychologists as well, and to make sure that they are following the same high standards as I practice. And hence and I have business coaching and other things. So I would like to prioritize them. Often the lawyer will contact us and say, we need it within a few days, and we unfortunately have to disappoint them. So you're absolutely right, and thank you for making that point. We once we agree to take the case, it's 14 working days from the day of assessment.
I'm surprised you say 14 days. That's quite short time. I think
Yeah.
ideally people would give you longer than that. And what I would encourage people to do is, in the context of an appeal, once you get that refusal and you've lodged your appeal, that's the time to start to build your case. And you've got that time before the
Yeah.
respondent submits their bundle, and then the skeleton argument and the bundle need to be done where you can instruct. So don't wait till that deadline's looming. As soon as that appeal is lodged, then in the
Yes.
context of appeals,
And in an ideal world, sorry,
no, no, absolutely. I've done, yeah.
in ideal world, this would be wonderful. But we have had so many cases of last minute reports that force me to say, to write a letter to say to the solicitor or to the lawyer, I'm sorry, I am unable to do this. And they've used it to get extensions.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to get to that point. You're absolutely right. So ideally, yes, if we are talking directly to lawyers, please give yourself sufficient time, because we will have to start saying no. I often found myself working through the night to help a lawyer that has done that last minute, but it's not something I'd like to continue to do.
Not at all. No, it's not something we want to do.
No.
Uh, that actually brings the sort of stress of the work we do brings me to this question. I wanted to change the subject in terms of vicarious trauma. A lot of us working in this sector, if I think back, I've been doing cases involving traumatized individuals for 25 years now, and that vicarious trauma impacts you. What are some practical tips you can offer immigration lawyers to protect their own psychological well-being as we do this type of work where there is this issue of vicarious trauma?
It's interesting. I don't. You probably. My guess is you haven't seen my thesis, but that was my thesis. My thesis was about vicarious traumatization and secondary trauma, where I looked at therapies that worked with victims of terrorism. And the interesting thing is, we discovered more post-traumatic growth and learning than anything else. But here is what allowed that. So instead of it developing into a vicarious traumatization or burnout, we discovered a few things. One is things that, if it's okay with you, I will share. Adam, is I know you're doing yoga, self-care, meditation, mindfulness. Those are things that might feel like they're kind of up here, unreachable for many people, for many very busy lawyers. But there are ways to, at least, if not doing meditation practice or yoga, is checking in with yourself.
Yeah.
And I teach that to CEOs that runs multiple companies across the world and doing it successfully. Check in with yourself for 3 minutes. That's all it takes. Check, use your breath as a guide, check your body, your thoughts. What's going on with me? I call it what's up, doc. Okay. So that what's up with me? What's going on? How am I feeling? How has this impacted me? Right? This awareness would lead you to understand what's going on with you instead of it creeping up on you, okay? and impacting your well-being. Taking breaks. I know I'm preaching to the choir in this, but many people don't do that.
No.
Even if you take 5 minutes every hour, that is essential, and it should be enough to diffuse some of this. Okay. Eating well, the regular things, loads of long hugs with loved ones to get some oxytocin running, trying to pay attention to not only your body and how it is impacted in your mind, but also how your environment is impacted, how your family is impacted, and how your colleagues are impacted by this. And speaking of colleagues, speak to them. Oh, I've had this terrible case. I remember in the NHS at the beginning, we used to come out of sessions and speak to each other about this and share that, some of that burden, some of that feeling. Lastly, I know it's hard, but it comes with practice. There's something called bracketing in psychology, and you learn that since baby school in psychology. Of how to bracket yourself away from the client's material.
Yeah.
Okay? So sitting back from it and not taking it on. Okay? You can still have a lot of compassion, a lot of care, and be very much involved with the client's case without taking the feelings, the physical sensations, and the raw material on. Okay. So those are some of the things, and I think one of the things we could do potentially is maybe do another talk later on specifically how to do this.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful for people, some specific strategies. It's
Yeah,
funny, so much of what you say resonates. It's funny you said about the 3 minutes. I've started doing this thing before I open my emails in the morning, just asking my smart speaker. I'll be careful so I don't set it off now, but just to set
yeah,
a timer for that period of time where I'm just quiet, reflect, reflect on what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling before I
yes,
start the day, and it hits you. I think there's also that sense of when you get home in the evening as well, taking that moment because we carry a lot of that our day with us.
absolutely. Yeah.
And that bracketing thing is so important over my practice. I've had to remember that ultimately the result doesn't depend on me. It's not the result is not my, you do your best and you give your best. And
Yeah.
what we do in these conversations is to help people, give people the best representation possible. But ultimately, the result is not your responsibility and it's not something you carry because otherwise the psychological weight it is just too much.
Yes.
That's really helpful stuff. If people have watched this and want to get in touch with you in terms of writing a report, get in touch with the team just to discuss perhaps a case, or even there's some professionals who think I could do with a bit of that help. Professionals who want to reach out to you, just tell us the best ways to do that. Of course, I'll put all of the information below this video.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we have our website, which is the easiest. We have LinkedIn connection. So our website is Panta-Rei Psychology.com. Or if you want to reach out to us through email, it's info@Panta-Rei Psychology.com. Or directly to me, MAI at Panta-Rei Psychology.com. And our phone numbers, the number that you're using, I am 99% of the time available on that. And the number of our website is for Netta, Netta, who is our head of operations. She also deals with all the administration, and she's a great person to speak to about this. And she knows also who to assign the cases to. So we have quite a lot of ways to reach out. We also advertise and or post quite a lot of we started to quite a lot of helpful posts for clients, for the general population, and for professionals in different areas of psychology, fields of psychology, so they can enjoy that extra knowledge as well.
No, that's really helpful. Well, Mai, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a
Thank
really
you.
privilege.